as you can see, the snow has finally melted, and that means that it's time for me to be able to finally get out here and do some work on this plot, get started on it. What's on the list for today is I want to take the chainsaw and I want to cut back some of these bushes away from the edge of the plot. The reason why I want to do that is one of the ways a food plot can fail is it's not made big enough and the deer eat it all the way down to the ground, meaning your deer herd is too big for the size of the plot. As this is a first year deer plot, I don't know how big it would have to be, or I guess the better way to put it would be how small I could make it and still get away with it being big enough that they aren't going to just completely eat it down to nothing. So because of that, what I want to do is make it as big as I can, as easy as I can. Obviously I could cut down even more stuff to make it bigger, but I don't want to get too crazy. So around the perimeter of the plot, there's some bushes. You can see some of them back in here. I'm basically going to just cut them back to their trunks, or just cut them back a few feet. And the reason why I want to do that this time of year right now, right away, is because, as you can see also, it hasn't greened up here yet. And what is going to happen if I cut those back after green up is it's going to be a lot harder for them to fill in where they've been pruned back to. But if I cut them back now, they should green up and fill in at the layer that I cut them back to. So they'll actually fill in and then work with my switchgrass that I'm going to plant around the border to work as cover around the edge. But what they're going to give me is a couple extra feet that I'll be able to plant my switchgrass out, that extra couple feet around the perimeter. That'll allow me to plant the plot a couple feet wider around the perimeter as well. And just adding that extra bit of square footage around the perimeter of the plot is going to really add up to some extra square footage and hopefully make it so that this plot doesn't get eaten down to nothing by the deer herd in the area. One of the other things I want to do is these random bushes that are kind of scattered around the middle of the plot. I will eventually pull those out either with the four-wheeler or with my truck. I don't need to do that today. That's just something that needs to get done before I start cultivating all of this. I also brought the magnet sweeper out here, so I'll probably be running that around, trying to pick up as many nails and stuff that are out here from when this was a paintball field. You can see some of the debris still laying here from what hasn't been picked up yet. Ultimately, I'm going to need to get all this debris picked up, all the nails out of here so I don't get flat tires. Get these branches cut back, and then maybe around May I'll start cultivating this. I'm going to have to spray it before this spring green up starts. We're going to spray this down so it kills all this down to the dirt. We don't have any vegetation left here other than what we want to plant in here. And it should be pretty good. There's a lot of work though, so I'm going to get started. Whew. Well, that was tiring. Whew. Need a breather here. As you can see, I cut this edge back. Everything that's going to be on this side is going to be inside the plot, so I'm not too worried about cutting this stuff right now, because this I'll be able to pull out, and I'm not too worried about that greening up. Like I was saying, I need this edge that I just cut here to green up to try to create as much cover as possible. Where I'm standing right now is where I'm going to plant switchgrass, so there's going to be some extra cover in here. But until the switchgrass gets established, I'm still relying on these bushes to keep me covered in here. Basically the switchgrass, I'm standing in the corner of the plot right now, so the switchgrass is going to come down this way and then go that way. The stand is going to be pretty much right through here. So this would be a blind spot for me a little bit in the corner here, except for when I plant switchgrass here, it's going to push the plot out just a little bit into this corner, and then it won't be a blind spot for me anymore. So like I said, I'm not too worried about these. I'm actually just going to pull these out, hook a chain up to them, pull them out either with the four-wheeler or my truck. And I don't have to do that till May when I'm ready to cultivate. So all I have left now, I do want to put up a mock scrape location on that tree that's through here. You can just see the top of it. So I'd need to clear up the brush around the bottom of it because I need it to be an open spot for the scrape to go under the tree, and there's a bush there right now. So I gotta cut that bush back a little bit. And then whatever time I have left, I'll pick up a little bit of this debris. I'm running out of time, so I might not get too much of the magnet sweeping done, but it does work really well. I played with it a little bit, picks up the nails real well. I'll try to get back out here tomorrow, get some more done. But it's definitely going to be a process. It's going to take some time, but I did get a lot done today so far. Get a little bit more done before I head home. It's really coming along. You can really start to see the size of the plot, how big it's going to be. When I stand where the box blind's going to be, I can really see like where my shooting lanes are going to be, about how far it would be if deer walked in through certain areas and such. So real excited to keep going on this. I'll bring you guys along for the ride. Now I'm going to go set up. We'll go clear out for that mock scrape location. This is where I'm going to set up the mock scrape. I'm going to do a vertical scrape. I'm going to hang a vine off the top of this branch here. So I'll put the mock scrape on the ground down here. I need to clear this out a little bit just based on where the tree's hanging over, where the vertical scrape's going to come down. So I need to clear this bottom area out a little bit so the deer have access to it and they can get in there real nice. This is about 35 yards from where the stand's going to be, right over here. So this would be a real easy shot if a buck were going to come in here and be working on the scrape while I'm sitting in the stand. I'm going to try to set up a camera on this too then, once it is set up, so we can see if the deer are messing with it or not. If they're not, I'll have to readjust it, maybe clear some more out on the bottom. That would probably be the issue. It is level here, you always want to put them where it's level. But yeah, so I'll get to work, I'll get this cleared up. So my goal was to get this about waist high off the ground, which you can see it is about waist high. The only problem is like this might not be quite thick enough because when you push on it, you can see it it's easy to push around. You want something that's got a little bit more resistance so they can actually rub on it without just shoving it. It might work though, we'll see. If I need a bigger one, I'll go find one. This is one that I just happen to have. Cutting all the stuff down, I just cut down right here. You can also see that I roughed the dirt up here like a normal scrape would be. They're not going to do that naturally themselves, but what it'll let me do is I'll be able to see footprints in here more clearly now. And with it roughed up, they can smell that, and they're just curious animals. They'll come check that out. When they come check that out, they're going to find this, and they'll play with this, hopefully. I would pee in it if I had to, but I sweat quite a bit while I was cutting trees down, and I'm running a little dry right now. But hopefully this will work. I'm going to set a camera up on it. We'll hopefully get some good pictures of it. If it doesn't work, I'll adjust. I'll get a thicker piece of vine to hang here. But yeah, hopefully it works. There's deer tracks all over in here. There's droppings right there. There's deer activity in this area. They shouldn't have any trouble finding that. So hopefully it works for them, and hopefully I get some pictures of them on it. I got the four-wheeler out here to try to pull out some of these bushes. As you can see, it's kind of difficult to pull out buckthorn. They are a very resilient shrub or bush or whatever you want to call them. Their root structure is very strong. They were definitely the hardest species to pull out of everything I was pulling out here. So I ended up going to get my truck, and it was a lot easier to pull them out with that. Anytime you have that issue of the bigger the vehicle is, the easier it's going to be pulling stuff out like that. Ideally, if you could get a hold of like a tractor or a piece of heavy equipment like a skid loader or an excavator or loader or something, that would work the best, but I didn't have that available to me on this day. So we just used the truck. We pulled out as many as we could with the truck. A lot of the bigger ones we left because we weren't able to get those, and then a lot of the smaller ones too, because you can't hook a chain up to them because they're just too small. But we got most of them cleared out, got a lot cleared out. I guess I should point out too that buckthorn is an invasive species in our area, so it is really good to get it out of there so it doesn't spread, because it does spread very easily and it chokes out all of the other native vegetation. So if you notice on like public lands, the DNR actually spends quite a bit of time and money clear cutting buckthorn out to try to restore our native prairies in southeastern Wisconsin. So it's not a bad idea to maybe do that on your own property too, just to cut down on them so they're not choking out the native vegetation that our native wildlife depend on. So in this situation, I either cut these down or pulled them out, and then I took them and I like stacked them up along the edge of the plot, and that'll actually create cover too for things like rabbits. At my house, I did the same thing. I trimmed back the shrubs that are behind my house, and I pile them up underneath there instead of burning them, and that actually creates some pretty decent winter habitat for rabbits. I can look outside my window any time in the winter, and there's always several rabbits under there, burrowed under there. Keeps the snow off of them, gives them a nice spot out of the weather. So these trees and shrubs and stuff that I cut down are actually still out there creating habitat for animals for years to come until they biodegrade down to nothing. It's day 3 of cleaning up the plot. We got a lot done in the last 2 days. My dad was actually out here yesterday and helped me quite a bit. We got most of the paintball debris picked up, at least the debris that's where the plot's gonna go. A lot of it outside of where the plot is gonna get planted is still there. We used the magnet sweeper yesterday. That worked really well. We actually picked up an entire 5-gallon bucket full of nails out here. Pretty crazy, so I'm happy to have those out of here so we don't get flat tires. I may still run it around a couple more times, maybe after cultivating, after I kick up the dirt a little bit, just to make sure I've got them all out of here. Nothing worse than a flat tire, really slows down your day. But as you can see off to this side, we have mostly everything cleared out of here. We pulled some of the bushes out yesterday with my truck. Worked really well. But some of them are a little bit too big to pull out with the truck, or are too small that it's not worth it to try to hook a chain up to them. So as you can see over here, I still have a little bit to do, so I'm just going to cut those down with the chainsaw now. They'll get sprayed along with everything else when it gets sprayed. Coming up here as soon as everything greens up. I actually got a sprayer today that mounts on the back of the four-wheeler, so I'm real excited to put that to use. Once I get this all cleared out, I'm basically done out here though. Everything's cleaned up. I'll just let it sit as is. I'll wait for spring green up. I'll come out here and I'll spray everything down, kill everything off. I'm going to spray probably 3 times just to make sure I get everything, and space that out about 1 to 2 weeks between sprayings, just to give it a chance of what didn't die to grow back long enough leaves or blades of grass that the next round of spraying will really take care of it. So at this point, I'm going to get to work and going to cut down the rest of this stuff. Wanted to bring you over here to show you this perspective, because this is the perspective from where the stand is going to be. Sorry about the audio, it's really windy out here. I was trying to keep you out of the wind on the other takes, but I'm assuming I didn't do too good of a job at that because it is just real windy today. But this is the perspective of where the stand will obviously be up in the air a little bit higher. But you can see now how cleared out it is. That tree that's right to the left of that stand on the right side of the screen, that tree's out there at about 45 yards. And so I'm going to plant switchgrass just beyond that so that I don't have much more than a 50-yard shot. This is going to be set up as a crossbow stand, so that should be more than in range, but I don't want to let the deer kind of sit back in that corner back there and feed, I want to make sure that they're a little closer so that I have a shot. So I'm going to intentionally plant switchgrass over there a little bit further away from the trees just to give me a closer shot. And as I pan this way, in the center of the screen right now, that tree is where I have the mock scrape set up. See if we can see it dangling in the tree there a little bit. Then you can see that white pipe I have a trail camera on, which isn't ideal, but there's so much scrap out here from the old paintball field that pipe really doesn't bother the deer at all. And that trail camera's sitting in there pretty well hidden from the mock scrape, but we'll see if it gets pictures. If it doesn't, I can always move it and readjust. So I'll keep panning over. Obviously that trail that's straight ahead on the right side of the screen, they're gonna come in through there. Then they'll also, here's the wind, right through here is that funnel, or that natural, like, I guess natural funnel that they come through. So right here is where the majority of my deer are gonna come, if they don't come from my sides or behind me, which they could do, but that's more towards where the houses are on this road, so that might be more nighttime movement that they'll come from behind, which I'm not worried about because I won't be in the stand at that time. But yeah, primarily this is right where I'm going to see the deer coming from. And then right here's the corner of the plot, so that'll be switchgrass as well, and I won't have to worry about that because I'll only be able to have deer right about here because of the food. So I'll pan back here quick just to show you. I got everything cut down out here. It looks like a wasteland, which is not good for deer habitat. I would be surprised if they come through here during the daylight at all right now. There'll be maybe some nocturnal movement through here, but that'll all change once the food plot's planted, the switchgrass starts coming up. That's going to be the real thing. We're going to need that switchgrass to come up to provide cover around the edge of this, and then they'll like coming in here during the day. Then food will obviously bring them in here, but food will bring them in here at night too. So we're really dependent on that switchgrass to come up. It'll provide the cover for them. They'll feel safe in here. If you look back here right behind me, this tree and clump of brush back there, that's where I have that mock scrape set up, so that may bring some interest to the area, give them something to do out here until the food gets going. I have the camera set up on it, but until this food plot really starts getting going, I'm not expecting too much out here. So on my agenda, I'm going to spray this about 3 times. Like I said, spaced a week or 2 apart, depending on how fast it grows after I spray it. After that, that's going to get me to about May. The beginning of May is when I'm going to plant the seed out here, both the switchgrass and buckwheat. The buckwheat will be in the middle, switchgrass on the perimeter. The perimeter will be about 15 to 20 feet wide with switchgrass. I'm expecting that to grow about 3 to 4 feet tall the first year, and then as many as 10 to 12 feet tall the second and third year. So it'll really take off and really be effective more so 2 to 3 years from now and beyond than it will be this first year, but it should still provide some cover this first year. After I plant those, I let them sit. I'll keep cameras out here, or at least a camera out here. See what the activity looks like. I should get some pretty decent pictures of some fawns with their spots when they're really little, and bucks with their velvet antlers. Then I'm going to come back out here about August 1st. I'm going to knock all the buckwheat down. I'm going to spray it to kill it, and I'm going to plant brassicas. And those brassica seeds won't get killed by the spray because the spray only kills green leafy things, and like within hours after that. It doesn't really go into the soil, it doesn't affect anything else, so it shouldn't affect the seed. The buckwheat that's knocked down is going to act as a good cover for erosion and for a little bit of protection for the brassicas to get going, so the deer don't just start nibbling on them the second they pop out of the ground. Hopefully they get established really well, and they'll be hopefully really tall, really lush come hunting season, and the deer will be coming in here to grab them as soon as the rest of everything dies off and they're still maintaining their greenness for some time. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if this all plays out. I have other options if the food plot fails for whatever reason, but I'm hoping that doesn't happen. So I'm done here for a while. I might bring you with just to show some spraying and whatever, but that's not too exciting. It's just a lot of driving around on the four-wheeler spraying. But I have to build the stand for this location yet, so I'll make some videos on that. I'm going to try to start making some videos on cooking up some of the stuff I still have in the freezer from last year. And we're getting real close to gardening season too, so I'll have some videos about that stuff as well.